Hello, welcome to another video. This PC case in front of you is an old XP system. It's an ATX case, and ATX hasn't really changed that much. ATX power supplies still fit in old cases. Old ATX power supplies still fit in new cases. But I guess the power requirements and design and technology has all improved. So yeah, old PC cases might be fine, but better to use a new power supply. What I'm doing here is using this as a server because you can see we've got these optical drive bays at the top, but then we've got a whole row of space for hard drives. The old 3.5 inch drives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could probably fit 6 in there. We could take this floppy drive out, fit another one there, 7. And if we got adapters, we could probably fit even more in this top section. So in terms of space for hard drives, this old PC case has loads of room. And that was just kind of the norm for a lot of old cases. So in this video, I'm going to transfer my file server PC and virtual server PC into this case, and I'm going to replace the heatsink on it with this. I think it's an ID cooling, and hopefully this will be quieter again than the stock Intel heatsink, and with this Corsair power supply it should be really quiet. Hopefully, I guess it'll just be the sound of the drive spinning that will be the noise. So I'll speed this bit up, but I've done this so many times now it's getting quite silly. So I know I've done this a number of times now, moved and changed this system, but I think, the thing that motivates me is that there's going to be a benefit to this. I'm going to be able to make this quieter using this heatsink, and I should be able to turn the fan speed down as well as keeping this processor cool. These tower coolers are really good value for money. This is an ID Cooling SE224-XT, and I've used similar ones on videos on this channel before, and it's kind of worked really well considering the price. They do work really well. They come with the adapters for the different types of socket. I just need to make sure I've got the right ones get attached. Let's see if this lines up and is correct. These little pins line up here, so that's good. Or do I need to take these little screws off? Let me check the manual. I think I've worked it out. Those things just push down, so this should go on here. This SSD is the main boot drive, so I'm leaving that connected to the same socket. So if you've done this before, it's fairly straightforward, but if you've not, then it can seem a little bit confusing. But you basically have to build your own mounting system for these cooling systems. And which way round do they go? On does it really matter? I think they go this way round. Screwed all these on. I'll give it some fresh thermal paste. I recently changed it, so I guess it doesn't really matter that it's going on the top of some other stuff. And then these screw into these bits, but I'll put the fan on first. And this has got little rubber bumper things to help isolate the vibration, and then these clips, so you get a bunch of clips so you can add an extra fan on the other side as well if you wanted. It shouldn't need it. Whoops, I've just got thermal paste on here. Great. And these should just go through here and then clip over the link. Sometimes, yeah, I think that's right. Sometimes you have them where they go over this, but no, it's definitely this one. Goes over here, and the same on the other side, where it goes through here and then clicks into place, and then this should fit here. Let me just double check both sides. Oh yeah, you want to put the fan on after you've screwed it in, because otherwise the fan gets in the way of the screws. Okay, all the screws are tight. I should be able to clip this back on, hopefully without too many issues. There we go. So, fresh heatsink. Now I just need to put it in the case along with the drives. Don't forget the back plate before installing a motherboard. You can get these things that fit over here, except this one isn't one. I must have put it somewhere. Here we go. This is one of those things that will fit over here, so that you can actually unscrew these, move them around and tighten them back up. without worrying about them coming undone. So the motherboard is in. The only thing really you need to worry about in terms of using old PC cases is how wide or deep it is. Because this cooler is quite high. I think it's just about gonna fit when the side is on. But yeah. Some of these more modern coolers are quite tall and some of the old PC cases are quite narrow. Using thumb screws to hold the power supply in while you're putting it in can be quite a useful thing. In terms of cable management for old PC cases like this, kind of hide the CPU cable up here, push it back a bit, hide it beside the motherboard, and then just everything spare you push into there. I don't really have much else that you can do for these old PC cases, and it can still look quite neat if you're able to find other places to hide the other cables, or if you do have a modular power supply, you could disconnect any of the spare cables, just put them somewhere safe so you don't lose them. There are so many power supplies for sale on eBay and Facebook that have no cables, and it's kind of like, well, do they have no cables because it doesn't work? Always a concern. But I kind of like the idea of leaving the basic ones on here, so if some of the cables are lost, at least I still have some of the essentials. And I'll just put the drives back in the same sort of order with the find somewhere for that. Start with the bottom one, I think. This is the old USB connection for the front of this case that I'm not going to use. Okay, and hopefully I'll be able to plug these in the same places. And I'm going to just put some screws to hold them in place a little bit. And then this can probably live up here as well. I need some power. Should probably use separate cables. Separate power, perhaps. Different power cable for this one, or some of them, in case, you know, if this cable blows up or this power line blows up, it blows up all of these, whereas if I use two separate cables, I could add some, I guess, resilience. But they shouldn't use that much power, so it shouldn't matter too much. And apart from this just floating around, we might be at the point where we can try switching this on. Oh, I need to connect the power button and lights and things like that. So I've screwed all the drives in, and then I've taken a photo of the front panel connector so I can work out where all the connections go, because it's pretty difficult to see. Okay, I just need to connect up the power and cables and things. Quite wobbly. Switch the power on. We've got a light down there. Just hopefully find the power button on the front. It's switched on. I'm gone into the BIOS. Just going to check the temperature, and it's pretty quiet. Let me just switch it off, disconnect the drives, and then I'll check the noise of this fan. So let's unplug the power for these drives. In fact, I can probably just unplug the top power connector here, and then they're all disconnected in one go. Maybe modular power supplies are good after all. Wow. So I've moved the phone camera closer so you can hear the noise that the fans make. So I'll switch it off. That's switched off. This Corsair RM850x only spins the fan when it's under a certain amount of load. So that is a silent power supply. So I'll switch it on. And I don't know if you could hear that, but the noise of the fan starts up quite audible. You can hear it. And then slows down to a point where I can't hear it anymore. This is very pleasing. There's just some general noise in the room. I don't have any computers switched on in this room, but there's just a general kind of noise. Maybe I don't know where it's from, basically, without going insane. But to get this system so quiet is really, really pleasing. And I guess the next thing is the fact that these drives are going to be loud, and this isn't a kind of soundproof drive setup. So there's no rubber grommets, there's no kind of cushioning. It's probably just going to amplify the sound of these through this metal. So it's off at the moment. I've connected the power for these again, so you can hear the noise it makes now when I switch it on. So even though this fan is pretty much silent and the power supply is silent, these have a kind of like constant sound when they spin. They may end up going to sleep, you know, if they're inactive and the power settings allow them to go to sleep. So we may end up with a silent system when these drives aren't running, but when they are running, they do make noise. So that's just the way spinning hard disks are. They make noise. But you know, perhaps if this system isn't being used, then it could end up putting these to sleep, and then we would have once again a silent system until these drives are actually needed. But yeah, this is all looking very nice, and I'm quite pleased with the results. You can see the front of the PC there. It's kind of looks old. Hopefully this kind of old style PC puts people off the idea of stealing it. They're much more likely to go with a PC full of RGB than this one. So there we go. I think that has been a worthwhile change. And I could add some soundproofing to this side panel. This is just, you know, piece of metal. Some soundproofing added to that should help. But yeah, there we go. The system is up and running in a case. There's more room for additional drives if needed. And we have a bunch of happy drives. Although this good 50%, that's for the SSD, that's a bit low, isn't it? So this is this the middle drive? Is this the warmest, perhaps? Anyway, I think I'll end here, and thank you for watching. If you've got this far, I've now set up a Patreon, so check that out in the links in the description. Feel free to support there if you want to. And I'll see you in another video. Oh yeah, let me know in the comments what kind of PC cases you use for your systems. Still using an old case from 20 years ago, or have you changed PC cases, and what have you done with your systems? Thanks for watching. Bye.